Fellow South Africans, hello everyone. Hope you're well. Today I'm just going to be talking about the rugby, the pragmatics of rugby, assessing everything left, right, back, and center pertaining rugby, together with the configurations of rugby as a whole. But I'm going to start here. We are 2023 rugby champions. I was so thrilled. I was very happy. I think it was the second time for me to watch the whole 90 minutes of rugby. It basically grabs my attention, and I'm so fixated with rugby from now on and so forth, propelling forward. I've been trying a little bit to ignore rugby, but just simply because of their coherence, consistency in culminating in winning, I think it some sort of grabs my attention. It a little bit lured me, it enticed me to give it more attention. But I'm a South African. You know that majority of South Africans, their eyes are gazed into football, soccer, rather than rugby. But now, I think just simply because of their consistency, I can dial them, I can trust them. I have fidelity on them. So if I'm gazing my eyes on the game, watching them, I become so thrilled and I'm fascinated, I must put it that way. So we're going to start by talking about the configurations of rugby. I'm going to strive at the level best of my potential to be very pragmatic about this matter. I will try to share my dialectics, the art of investigation and discussing the truth of the opinion, why people like God Penwell Mlotshwa, which is a guy who's a social media influencer, a political commentator. He's very strong in his views, he's very transparent, he's very blatantly blunt about whatever that he says. And most of the things that he articulates, I'm more inclined to agree with them. I've got less discord. I've got less dissonance with whatever that he shares on social media pertaining matters in our country. We've seen Penwell Mlotshwa together with what you might call this. It's president of the EFF, which is President Malema, was very dubious together with Penwell Mlotshwa. These two individuals appear on social media sharing their sentiments pertaining the configurations of rugby. They were very dubious, I must put it that way. They were very dubious that rugby, it is being used as a weapon of establishing a rainbow nation, which is totally a false statement, inverted commas, according to their perspective point of looking at things. I'm not going to say I'm disagreeing with them, but I can see in the angle in which they look at these things, it pretty makes sense, but you should understand that majority of people, the masses in South Africa, are very oblivion, they're very gullible, to just agree with anything that the media depict to their eyes, So let's talk about the rugby configuration. Yes, I'm the champion, hence the rugby took World Cup last year. I'm very thrilled, I'm very happy, I'm very excited. You could see the movement. The country was shaken, people were very excited, were very joyful, the level of exuberance was at the brink, It is so exciting to see that happening in our country, but they were throwing words like stone towards this narrative or towards this perception of saying rugby, it is a tool that is being used in order to establish rainbow nation or to revamp or to rejuvenate rainbow nation, which is totally a false statement. Because if you could just assess this thing in a broader picture, you will discover that why rugby is not in what you might call this. If you could just assess the monuments, the level of rugby, especially in townships and in rural areas, it is critically very scarce. It is very limited. I don't know these configurations of the people who are serving in high incumbents in rugby, they don't see that angle, that gap, that void that needs to be filled. That in townships, there is less rugby, as well as in rural areas, there is less rugby. So it seems like it is a sport which is only for the Model C schools, because the Model C schools are only people that dominate in rugby. And remember that there is just very minority of black people who are students in these Model C schools, because remember, we're from a very deplorable, dysfunctional, critical backgrounds. As black people, we cannot afford to take our children's to private institutions, to Model C schools. So we find rugby very dominant in those areas of, if I could put it that way. So they were like in question of that. Why rugby? If it's the agenda that should benefit the whole South Africans, why rugby is not inculcated, why rugby is not imposed in townships together with in rural areas, why it's only limited in suburb places. So and this thing of saying rugby is like uniting, synergizing all the race, all the tribes in the form of this Rainbow Nation, which is one of the things that icon Nelson Mandela left us with. So these two individuals, Upenwell together with Umalema, they were very dubious, about the configurations that this rugby is meant to benefit the blacks and the whites. But if you see in the census scale, you will find out that it's the minority of black people who are part and parcel of that arc, of that craft, which is rugby. Why is that the case? And I'm gonna embroil Usia Kolisa in this thing, because Usia Kolisa, I'm gonna embroil him in these arguments, because Usia Kolisa is seen as an umbrella, as an icon of rugby. The hilarious part is that Usia Kolisa is the captain of the Republic of South African rugby. He's the captain, but he's an average player. Remember that he's married to a white lady. Once you prioritize a white woman, as black people, we know that, who the hell are you? I'm sorry if this will sound naive, but without fear of prejudice, I won't beat around the bush. I'm just going to be blunt with you. I'm going to be very crystal clear, quite frankly, in a nutshell. Even though I'm very reprehensible, for criticism, you're more than welcome to throw your negative connotations to what I'm trying to portray here. But Usia Kolisa is married to a white lady, to a white woman, a very rich, lucrative, affluent white lady, as a black person. So this thing of saying rugby, it is meant to unite, to synergize South Africa, it is not the case. Why can't they take rugby in township, in rural areas? Why it's still limited in Model C schools? So Penwell, through words like stone, were very in critique of this thing. That is why I'm saying Penwell and President Malema were very dubious about that narrative that the rugby is pushing the agenda of Rainbow Nation. While they only select the minority of black people, rugby is still dominated by white people. So that's the content. That's where the issue started to exacerbate. When these people were starting to be very to neglect, to lambast, to lash rugby, even though it did quite well by taking the World Cup. So I'm going to embroil Usia Kolisa to this argument, because it seems like he's being used as a gambit. He's being trapped, to gain advantage, white people to gain advantage, because people, when they're looking at rugby, they think it is owned by black people, just simply because of how they use the picture of how they use this man, which is Usia Kolisa, to be like the umbrella, to be the promoter of rugby and everything, as if rugby it's for the blacks. It is not meant for the black. It is not meant to unite black and white, because we still find minority. Remember that black people are in majority. Why in a country that has I think 60-something million population, but there is a sport that is being dominated by white? Why? Because I'm quite sure that black people are availing themselves to participate in rugby, but the people that owns rugby I think they, at some point, somewhere, somehow, they have a way of surfing, eliminating black people from rugby. So that's where the problem is. Siya Kolisa is used as a gambit. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day. Have a lovely one.